What is going on, everybody? This is the Fourth and Fantasy Podcast, episode 27 we have coming your way. My name is Meek. I have my co-host to the left, Wu. Wu, it's official. NCAA college basketball returns.
Oh, my God. We were just having this conversation, taking a trip down memory lane, playing the game when Blake Griffin was on the cover. We didn't realize Greg Oden was on the cover. It looks nothing like him, our defense.
You couldn't even have told me that was Greg Oden. I wouldn't have believed you.
Never would have guessed that. But, yeah, I just remember playing that game. Big UConn fan, I'm sure, as people have figured out by now. I remember running the ball, running the offense with AJ Price. I don't even think people know who that is.
Nope.
That's okay, but yeah, I can't wait for that game. Oh my God.
Yeah, it may get me back. I was telling Wu prior to last time I played was NCAA college basketball 08 when Kevin Durant was on the title. That was when me, Terrell, and Ty, when we were kids, stayed up till like 2-3 in the morning just simulating through seasons and March Madness brackets, and it was a great time.
Something about college basketball. It's so romantic.
Yeah, it's great. But this is not a college basketball show. This is a Dynasty Fantasy Football show, but we're gonna keep it rolling. So we've hit 1,400 plus plays across Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. That is thanks to the folks that are listening on this episode, the folks that are watching this episode. Thank you. We love you. Keep going. Make sure you're following us on all of our socials: Twitter at Fourth and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at Fourth and Fantasy, YouTube at Fourth and Fantasy. I feel like I keep saying this, Woo, every week, but the TikTok is blowing up. We just had a TikTok hit 12,000 views.
Crazy.
Which is crazy for us, but
people are chronically online, but it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, listen, we love you online, so keep staying online, keep giving us the love. Please make sure you're giving us a like and follow on our socials and leave a comment, because you never know, you may see yourself on the show. Quick question for the day, Woo. I call this one epic fantasy win. What is your most epic fantasy win or meltdown? Well, I'll let you go first.
Listen, Zach, I know you're driving to work right now. I'm really sorry, but as soon as you hear this question, you know how I'm going to answer this. Let's flash back to last year in our redraft league, the highly coveted Bonnet Shores Fantasy Football League.
Yep.
I think we've talked about it before on this show where I traded for Saquon at the deadline. Out of nowhere, the Saquon manager was like, "Hey, you want Saquon?" Yeah, my team was terrible, needed somebody.
Listen, you put his name out here because he deserves to be flamed for this.
So Josh Rondo,
yeah, there it is.
He was like, "Hey, you want Saquon Barkley?" I'm like, "Yeah." How about he was like Tyreek Hill and somebody else for Saquon? So somehow Tyreek Hill and Travis Etienne got the job done.
Mm-hmm.
So then the following week, I played Zach, and Saquon had 46 fantasy points.
What? Say that again. How many?
46.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, me and Zach had a season-long bet going on there who would finish better, and this was the nail in the coffin. So, shout out to Rondo, shout out to Saquon. That was the one good thing that happened to me last year, so I'm going to sit here and run with it. Sorry, Zach, I know I just ruined your day going to work, but, had to be done.
Hey, it is what it is. Listen, I'm ruining another person's day in our Bonnet league, but I'm going to take everyone back in time. I'm going to take you back to January 2nd, January 3rd of 2021. It was week 17. I am in the championship. I had steamrolled all year long. I was 12-2. I'd only lost twice. And a man by the name of Josh Matera decides that he wants to come for the king in the league. And he had himself a good team. I'm looking back at his roster. He had, Josh Allen when he was having his breakout year. Josh Jacobs, who had a phenomenal year when he was on the Raiders. He had Devontae Adams. Like, all the things were going right for him. He, however, ran into one man. The one man is rookie Jamar Chase. That was the year.
Sickening.
And I was telling this Woo beforehand. I remember it being in that draft, and I hated that pick because for those of you guys who, you're probably well, you hated picking Jamar Chase. What is wrong with you? But this was Jamar Chase's rookie year.
I remember the stories in camp.
This was coming after COVID, so he didn't play that COVID year of college football that everyone did. He sat out that year, and then the word coming into camp was he was rusty. He was dropping a lot of passes.
Do you remember why they said he was dropping passes?
No,
because there was no white line on the ball like in college. You couldn't see it. I remember that so specifically.
I didn't know that. I just heard he was dropping passes. So I had drafted him, and I was just I remember telling Woo, because I drafted him and Devontae Smith, and Devontae Smith was coming off of a Heisman Trophy win, and I was like, who do I trade? And he had told me to trade Chase.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And I ended up not. I traded Devontae Smith, but listen, Jamar Chase 55 points. How you doing? Secures me a championship. Josh Matera, sick. I know he was. But enough with our quick question and making fun of folks in the league. We're going to move on to our news around the NFL. There's only one big news really to talk about, and it literally happened this morning. So we're recording this on a Monday, June 30th, and literally around like 11 o'clock today, we got word that the Dolphins are trading Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, and a late round pick swap, or a 7th round pick. I'm sorry, to the Steelers in exchange for Minkah Fitzpatrick and a 2027 5th round pick. Woo, what are your initial thoughts here? Obviously football wise,
right.
We have some big key defensive pieces moving, but fantasy wise, what are your takes?
Well, fantasy specifically, this hits home to me because I have a dynasty roster with Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth. So now I have decisions to make. I had plenty of decisions to make anyway, so might as well add one more to the list. The whole thing with Jonnu Smith, I felt like, a good part of this offseason is like Arthur Smith was like dying to get him on his team.
Sure.
So I guess it's not a surprise that he eventually made it to the Steelers in the deal. And I hope that with Arthur Smith being so desperate to have him on his roster, he uses him properly, and maybe I have some value there.
Mm-hmm.
We have Aaron Rodgers there now, so it's just a matter of like, are they going to run, 2 tight end sets with Jonnu Smith and Freiermuth? Are they going to be splitting touches the whole time? That situation is pretty murky for me, and to be honest, I'm very as someone who has both of them on a roster, like I'm not looking forward to the situation at all.
Yeah, I didn't feel good about it when I saw it. Like, obviously, I dynasty wise, I don't have any pieces, in this. I think if anything, really a positive is for Aaron Rodgers, because now he finally has a clear cut second weapon. The one thing I had listened to before we started the show, however, was it kind of fits perfectly for what Pittsburgh wants to do now, because there's no, it's clear that Jonnu is probably the clear-cut number 2 receiving option. They don't need to run, 2 wide receiver sets often or 3 wide receiver sets often. They can just run 12 personnel. When I say 12 personnel, I'm meaning 1 receiver and 2 tight ends, and just play Steeler football, exactly what they want to do. We'll run two tight end sets and smash the ball with Caleb Williams all day long, and then we'll have Aaron Rodgers pull play action, and then he can hit, obviously, DK Metcalf, but now Jonnu and Freiermuth, and it becomes almost like the 2017 New England Patriots when they had Hernandez and Gronk. I'm not saying that Jonnu or Freiermuth are that caliber, but like that's kind of the play style that they're going to set up. We're going to pound the ball, and then in that same personnel where you think, all they're going to do is run, they're going to pull the ball back and then hit either like DK or Jonnu Smith to gas you guys. So if that is the vision the way I'm seeing it, it could work, and they could be a good football team.
I wonder if they use Jonnu more as like a receiver. Like he's kind of built like one. He's 6'3", like he's 250, so he's a little heavier than a receiver would be. But athletic wise, like he has decent speed. He's pretty explosive. And I wonder if they get creative with that. Who knows what Arthur Smith's creativity levels are these days? I was just going to say, but it's like the worst offensive coordinator he could be with.
I agree, but he loves Jonnu Smith, because you think about it, like Jonnu Smith got paid by the Patriots because of how good he was on Tennessee, and who's the offensive coordinator? Arthur Smith. He then goes to Atlanta, or maybe I think it was Atlanta. Then after that, and we're all thinking like this is finally the emergence of Kyle Pitts and everything. Nope, Jonnu gets way more touches and it infuriates us. You know what I mean? So like there's something there with Jonnu that Arthur Smith loves. He loves, and I think now that they've traded for him, now he's going to utilize him. The best he can.
I think if there was any value for Freiermuth, it's gone. Like because of how obsessed Arthur Smith is with Jonnu Smith, I think we can kind of tell who is gonna, if there is any discrepancy between like snap percentages and targets, like it's gonna be Jonnu who's ahead of that.
And Freiermuth is the bigger tight end out of the two. Am I correct, or I can't remember? He must be. So if that is the case, then Freiermuth has to be like almost considered as like the blocking tight end for him.
6'5", 260.
Yeah. So they'll probably have him keep his hand in the dirt and use him on the dirtier plays, and then Jonnu's kind of your receiving tight end, which is not going to be good for him. Other thing I will say, and I'm not like I have no inside knowledge on this, but if there's someone you need to add as a free starting tight end, the name is Julian Hill. Plays for Miami. He's a second-year pro. Out of Campbell. I don't have much to say, but he's all that's left. You know what I mean? It seems like as I'm looking on Sleeper, due to the news, there's a lot of buzz on a guy named Jalen Conyers, rookie tight end, undrafted tight end from Texas Tech. He seems like he's getting a lot more ads than Julian Hill, but this was another one that I forgot to tell you off camera, but you know who's getting a lot of buzz right now in all of this news?
Who's that?
Michael Mayer.
My God.
Tight end from Las Vegas. So, and I actually had somebody in a league because I have him in one of my dynasty leagues. Someone offered me a trade for him, and I didn't understand it at first. And then I looked over at the trends, and I realized that he was the third trending tight end right now, which gets me thinking this could be an opportunity for Las Vegas right now to trade Michael Mayer and get some draft capital or whatever, for a really good talented tight end. I was going to say, I mean, he was a legitimate tight end prospect coming out, 2 years before or the year before Bowers, 6'4", 265 out of Notre Dame. I want to say he was the same class as McBride, and when that was being talked about, it was like him and McBride were the 1-2 tight ends, and obviously he went to Vegas and they took Bowers a year later, and he kind of fell back into the to the wayside, but he's still talented, you know what I mean? And there was something
better than what they have.
Correct. And there was something 4 months ago where the Raiders were exploring trade options for Mayer. So now maybe does this kind of get the wheels turning and get him over to Miami? I don't know, but that something to just keep an eye on. If you're someone who's a tight end needy team, and you want to take a shot and say like, okay, I think the Raiders are going to trade Michael Mayer. Maybe you want to do it now while it's like nobody understands it, nobody realizes it, and you could walk away with a talented tight end one.
I like that.
Yeah. So that was our news of the day. Now we're going to get into our main topic of the show. Main topic of the show today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm calling this high risk, high reward players. And I'm actually pretty excited about this one. So what Wu and I are going to do for each position, we're going to talk about a high risk and a high reward player. So we'll go quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight end. And when we go through each of these, each player, we're going to give you the risk. We're going to tell you, why this player is so risky, why a lot of people are avoiding this player. And then we're going to talk about the reward on, what's the thing that can go right? Obviously the reason why they're risky is because a lot of people are looking at the negatives at what can go wrong. Am I right, Ru?
Oh, yeah.
And now it's, we're going to give you the side of, what can go right and what can happen, and maybe give you a potential ceiling of that player. So maybe it takes a little bit of the worry away. So, if that's somebody who's sitting later in your drafts or around your pick, if you listen to this episode, maybe it gives you some solace of like, okay, I understand the risks of this player, but I see these potential rewards, and are the rewards going to outweigh the risks? Are the risks going to outweigh the rewards? That's up to you as the drafter to pick. We can only kind of put the information in front of you. But with that being said, Woo, why don't you kick us off in the quarterback sector? Yeah,
for a quarterback, it's a guy I've personally wrestled with, back and forth in my mind on whether I'm in or not. And it's going to be J.J. McCarthy. Starting off with the risks, because this is typically where I've been leaning when I'm thinking about him going into this year. Hasn't had a single NFL snap. We have no idea what he looks like in an NFL uniform on an NFL field against NFL defenses. We have zero idea what that looks like. He's also coming from a Michigan system that didn't throw very much. In the year that in 2023, when they won the national championship, he threw the ball 332 times. It was 72% completion percentage, which was really nice.
Amazing.
But the yards, it was only for 2,991 yards, 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So it's just like the passing numbers don't jump off the page. It's kind of like, like they leaned on their run game, which is true. They had a good defense as well. So he was kind of just like a game manager, so to speak.
Yep.
It was obviously a very good season for them, and they ended up winning a national championship. But it's not some of these, college players that we see with this crazy tape thrown for 400 yards on a week and for 4 touchdowns or whatever the case may be. So it's just like the passing, we didn't see a ton of it in college. We don't even know what he looks like, on a Minnesota team where they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. He's also coming off a meniscus tear. Yes, he's young, but like knee injuries are always worrisome in my opinion. So those are the things that I'm kind of weighing. The biggest thing is that, we just haven't seen him. He didn't even make it all the way through training camp last year, right? Like he got injured pretty early on.
Yeah,
if I'm remembering correctly.
It was after their first preseason game was when he had that injury, because I think he had the injury, but he actually finished whatever amount of snaps that he had, and then coming into practice, that was when they realized like, oh, he tore his meniscus and is going to be out for the rest of the season.
Yeah. So all those reasons for me is they're big red flags in my opinion.
I will say, because I was just curious about, because we forget that it was a legitimate injury that McCarthy had that kind of sidelined him. And I'm just looking here, just on his sleeper profile, but 17 days ago was reported that J.J. McCarthy says surgically repaired knee feels, quote, stronger than ever.
It's a good headline.
It's a great headline. I don't know how. Obviously, the player themselves, says that has to give themselves that confidence in order to move forward. But like if that seems kind of promising that he's confident in the recovery process. The training that he's done. Going into this season.
Yeah.
But so you were talking about risk. We'll go ahead and give us the reward side of J.J. McCarthy.
So, my first bullet point here is see what Sam Darnold did last year.
Yes.
I'll just run through his stats. I'm sure we all know him, but, he was the quarterback 8 on the year. He played 17 games, 545 passing attempts on 66% completion percentage, 4,300 passing yards, 35 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions. But, compared to what it was a career year for Sam Darnold. It came out of nowhere, complete career revival, and it earned him a pretty handsome contract, with Seattle. So the reason behind that is Kevin O'Connell. Like he's still there. He's still the head coach. He's a QB guru. That offense is going to be exciting as long as he's at the helm of it, calling plays. And when it comes to the situation that JJ McCarthy's in, like it really can't be better than what it is. You have Kevin O'Connell. You're throwing to the best wide receiver in the NFL. Oh, you also have Jordan Addison, who's one of the better wide receiver 2s that you have in the league. Aaron Jones is still kicking and putting up some great numbers for his age and where he's at in his career. So it really can't be a better
TJ Hawkinson.
Exact, and TJ Hawkinson. Like it cannot be weapons wise, situation wise. It cannot get any better for JJ McCarthy. And I think Kevin O'Connell is the big piece here. Where if you're someone who's betting on JJ McCarthy, I think you can be confident in that because of Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, listen, I like all those. I'm looking right now at JJ McCarthy's ADP. He's currently going at the 1207 right now. So he's the QB 18 right now going off the board. So QB 18 going off the board. So it's a stab, you know what I mean? Like it's basically taken with a late round flyer. But would you rather Wu have J.J. McCarthy in redraft this year or Trevor Lawrence?
Trevor Lawrence.
Would you rather have J.J. McCarthy or Cam Ward?
Wow, J.J. McCarthy.
Okay.
Weapons.
J.J. McCarthy or Matt Stafford?
The upside is there for McCarthy, but the floor for Stafford I'm a lot more comfortable with. So I'd probably go Stafford.
And then last one, J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix Jr.?
I'm going to go McCarthy again just because I think the situation surrounding him is so much better than Penix.
So all those guys are going after McCarthy right now. So
You
said you'd rather have Lawrence, he's at 1305. You'd rather have Stafford, he's at 1409. And then obviously Penix is after that. But interesting, you know what I mean?
The thing for McCarthy is like you're not drafting him at a crazy price, which is nice.
Correct.
So like the risk isn't necessarily where you're drafting him. It's the risk of this guy could be the worst quarterback we've ever seen.
Yeah, well,
I hate to throw a hyperbole, but like it's a real scenario.
Yeah, and really the risk is like you waited on quarterback, and assuming, right, you put your eggs in McCarthy's basket. You're like, I'm going to punt QB because I know I'm in on McCarthy, and that's your quarterback, and then he lays an egg. Like, that essentially is the risk, where at some point during your draft you could have gone quarterback a little bit earlier, and that maybe is a more safer option than what you get from McCarthy. So I guess that's the risk and reward with it. But great first choice. I like that one.
I like yours. Your next one.
I know you would like this one. I'm gonna bring everyone. We're going back into the time machine again. The year is 2022. This quarterback had 2,242 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 11 picks. You're probably like, Meek, that's awful. Like, why would you ever bring that up? However, this same quarterback had 160 rushing attempts for 1,143 yards and 8 touchdowns.
My QB.
His name is Justin Fields. Justin Fields is now the current starting quarterback, by the way, of the New York Football Jets. But the risk of Justin Fields is that maybe he's not as dynamic as he once was. It could be the Jets. They don't have enough of a supporting cast. You look at that team. Yes, they made great moves on the offensive line. However, you have Garrett Wilson and then a bunch of nobodies. Yeah. You have rookie Mason Taylor, who we all presume is going to be the starting tight end, but it could be Jeremy Rucker, who is just an absolute nobody. And then you have Breece Hall that has yet to have 1,000 yards. Listen, I love Breece Hall, but he's yet to have 1,000 yards rushing. They've talked about at certain points in this offseason of potentially it being like almost a three-headed monster backfield of him, Braylon Allen, and Isaiah Davis. So all of these things don't bode well for Justin Fields, because Justin Fields is not the type of guy who is going to excel or make the pieces around him special. Right. He needs a good supporting cast in order to be well. See the previous years in Chicago when they didn't have anyone, and also then see. It's a different situation in Pittsburgh last year when he got pulled. He was doing games. Well, but he was winning games, and he did have a supporting cast. But back to those 2 years before in Chicago when he was supposed to be the guy that makes everyone around him special, he can't do that, and that's okay. Like, I'm not knocking him. Like, you got to know what you're good at and what you're not good at.
You got to know what girl you brought to the dance.
Exactly. I love that analogy. But so he's someone who he needs a supporting cast around him to keep him relevant. So those are the huge risks that come with Justin Fields. On top of, he only signed a 2-year deal. So, if things go south for Justin Fields, like, he's out. Like, he's not the option, and he moves on. But however, the rewards of this are, he could he's back with his college wide receiver in Garrett Wilson.
That's the part I'm so excited about.
And that could just be an absolute hyper target situation where we've seen him do that, and that's been successful for DJ Moore. That year where Justin Fields was the quarterback 6 and had 1,000 rushing yards. I don't know how many of those of those 2,200 passing yards went to DJ Moore, but a lot of them did, because DJ Moore was like a wide receiver 6 that year. Potentially the Jets running game returns to form, and Breece is actually the guy we all know and love, and that takes the pressure off of Justin Fields, which then allows him to be more dynamic and run some read option with Breece Hall, and then hit Garrett Wilson down the sideline and things like that. The reward also is that maybe he becomes a great dual threat quarterback. And I have sat here and said, when you're drafting a team for fantasy football, you want to make sure that you're targeting dual threat quarterbacks. And I had it up. Oh, I lost it. But Justin Fields right now is going at the 1201. So, we were just talking about McCarthy going at the 1207. Justin Fields is an absolute late round stab on someone where if the things go right, I think he's a potential top 10 quarterback, and that's just not
on the legs alone,
right? And that's just on the legs. I'm not even saying that he is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL as a quarterback. Just in the game of fantasy football, he will provide enough rushing upside to make himself relevant and be a top 10 quarterback. And you got this guy in the 10th round or 12th round. I'm sorry,
right?
So those are the things where if it all goes right, I could see it being a very special year for Justin Fields.
I think the familiarity of him with Garrett Wilson is going to be very beneficial. I think the legs are going to be a massive part, and I think his the way he's going to have to use his legs is going to be a little bit different than Chicago. The offensive line is going to be better. So I think it's going to be more scripted running plays rather than, oh my God, my offensive line already let everybody pass. Now I have to run for my life. I also want to point to, your point when you said, he's not really someone who's going to elevate his guy. Like, he needs established pieces. And I think he has more established pieces than what he did in Chicago. I think the talent of Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, from them alone, is more than what he had in Chicago. Yes, Alan Lazard and Arian Smith and Xavier Gibson, like, just they're not gonna have any solid production this year. Like, it's pretty sad outside of Garrett Wilson, but I think the talent of Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall can help him out a lot. I think if he is to be one of the top guys in fantasy this year, surprisingly, it's going to be based off his legs. Yeah. But I think the familiarity of Garrett Wilson is going to help out the passing game a lot.
I agree with those the things you talked about in the passing game, and it's hoping that who's the offensive coordinator for New York?
He's the old Detroit passing game.
Yeah,
I'll find it.
I'm hoping he is just creative enough to
Tanner Engstrand.
Thank you. I'm hoping that he has enough, creativity to get Justin Fields moving in space and getting his legs moving, because he's not a phenomenal. He's a good enough passer, but he's not a phenomenal passer. He's gonna make his money by rushing the ball. And yes, that year where he was the QB6, I agree with you. A lot of it was because of the offensive line in Chicago was Swiss cheese, and he just had to make do with whatever he had. Hopefully, with this line, they're able to do a lot more designed run plays and get him out in space, so that he can break off more yardage.
And one other thing I want to mention is when he was in Chicago with that terrible offense, the defense was also bad. Mm-hmm. So it was nonstop catch up the whole game, and that can really open those wounds that we see from Fields of the decision making or the poor decision making and just making mistakes in general, because he has to play catch up the whole game. I fully expect this Jets defense to be not only better than that Chicago defense was when he was there, but just better than they were last year, and getting back to that 2023 level that they were at, where I think statistically they were top 5 across the board in defensive stats. So I think the defense will also help him not have to, oh my God, it's the first quarter, we're already down by 21. Like, now I have to throw the ball 60 times the rest of this game. Like, I think that's going to limit some mistakes as well.
Yeah. Is Justin Fields someone that you would be willing to take on in your redraft league this year for a starting quarterback?
Yeah, definitely a name I'm considering there late, because I do 9 times out of 10, I probably not until round 8, I'm not thinking about a quarterback in redraft unless there's something there where it kind of just works out well for me. Mm-hmm. But redrafts especially, I definitely wait on quarterback. And he's definitely a name I'm going to be thinking about. And nice. it's probably gonna have to be a situation where I don't have to take him because I get too excited because he is on the Jets. So we'll have to see how that actually plays out.
I was gonna say, I think for you, just knowing you,
it's probably bad news if I take him.
First of all, if you somehow take Garrett Wilson in that, it's a done deal.
Oh my God.
That's exactly where your head's going. I know you so well.
Oh no. Now I'm just gonna be thinking about that until August.
There it is.
Thanks.
Moving on to the running back position, I will kick it off to you to start us off.
Yeah, I got Isaiah Pacheco, which is really sad because, not sad, but I just hate the fact that he's in a high risk, high reward category because I do really like him as a player. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the risk, so he gets injured last year. In week 3, so week 2 he gets hurt, so he doesn't play weeks 3 through 12. He comes back in week 13, and he was just a non-factor in the offense coming back from that injury. Somehow stuck behind the revival of Kareem Hunt. I don't know if I'll ever get over that. And the big thing for me is inside the 5. Isaiah Pacheco had 3 attempts inside the 5. Kareem Hunt had 17. Like, that discrepancy in numbers is like that's jumps off the page for me. And when it came to Pacheco, when he did come back, he was very inefficient. And we saw last year and like kind of in 2023 as well, Kansas City has kind of turned away from being, a dominant offense that'll win games by scoring 30 plus. Mm-hmm. Now, they're really leaning on their defense, and like clutch fourth quarter drives from Mahomes that he kind of pulls out of a hat. And they end up winning the game, and all of a sudden, they're 12-1, and everybody's like, how? They average 20 points a game. So it's factors like that I'm considering, that make me a little bit nervous about Pacheco.
I would also just to throw in another risk factor is that Pacheco's a 7th-round pick.
Exactly.
There's no draft capital behind
Absolutely
him.
none, and he's in a contract year.
Correct.
I'd be very shocked if Kansas City were to offer him a contract, because he could probably get more money from a worse team.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of just throwing a dart at a running back because they want to spend money. So I think after this year especially, like I don't see him in Kansas City's future. But when it comes things that I do like it for Pacheco specifically, somehow the Chiefs didn't spend any draft capital or money so far on another running back. So it looks like this year should be Pacheco getting back to himself. The other thing I was thinking about is last year when he comes back from injury, yes, it was the Kareem Hunt show. Was that Kansas City trying to like kind of slowly get Pacheco back in? Maybe they didn't want to throw him to the fire right away. At least that's my positive spin zone on it. But yeah, for the high reward, he gets back to his main role in this RB room. He gets to play alongside a guy like Mahomes who can create magic and pull rabbits out of a hat out of nowhere. And the big thing is the passing work that he got in 2023. He saw 49 targets, 44 receptions, and 244 yards. We talk about quarterbacks having that rushing ability on top of the passing that is nice for fantasy, and for running backs it's the passing work that they can get as well. It's just extra fantasy points that you're able to accrue
right.
On a weekly basis. And in 2024, the first 2 weeks, he was seeing 42% of the team's total rushing attempts before he went down, targets as well. So being on the Kansas City offense is a positive in itself. I really hope Kareem Hunt they turn him away and get back to Pacheco.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I like this pick. I was not a huge fan of Pacheco when like this offseason was going on. I thought for sure Kansas City was going to go in some direction, whether it was through free agency and pick up a guy or in the draft and take a higher valued, rookie, but they didn't do any of these things. And it's essentially, really the only person that they brought in that's new is, outside of, the Brashad Smith truthers, who's, 7th-round rookie out of SMU, was Elijah Mitchell. And I can't even tell you the last time Elijah Mitchell's played a full season.
No idea.
So really the way I see this backfield is it's Pacheco and it's Kareem Hunt. And really if Pacheco starts to struggle, like, are we seriously going to put in a 30-year-old Kareem Hunt? You know what I mean? Like,
they were willing to do it last year.
They are, but I just find it very hard to believe that a 30-year-old Kareem Hunt has more juice than what a healthy Isaiah Pacheco can bring to the table.
No, yeah, the back half of that year was baffling in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think I go back to I don't know if it was last episode or 2 episodes ago when we were talking when OTAs were happening and they were talking to Mahomes about Hollywood Brown, and the comment that he had said was it was by that time in the year they were already kind of stuck into their tendencies and who their go-to guys were, so it was so hard to incorporate someone like Hollywood Brown. I think the same is for Isaiah Pacheco. I think he was gone for so long, it was hard to just work him back in. But if he stays healthy for, through training camp, these preseason games, and at the beginning of the season, I think he is an integral part and the only face in the Kansas City backfield. Yeah. Like, yes, like Hunt will get some touches, but not as much as Pacheco.
And like back to my point is like Kansas City has kind of turned away from being that dominant offense. Like, they were winning games with what they were doing with Kareem Hunt, and I just feel like they were in such a situation where why are they going to change something that's working so well? Even if they are winning games by one possession, at the end of the day, a win's a win. Mm-hmm. And I think they've really leaned into that.
Listen, unless I'm like completely off about Brashard Smith and he's like the second coming of like the next Isaiah Pacheco, I don't see how it doesn't work out for him in this current state. But I mean, I could be wrong, absolutely. Next running back I'm going to give you as a high risk, high reward. You're probably wondering, why didn't we talk about this person at the top? But it's okay. It is Christian McCaffrey. All right. I don't need to go over the risk with you guys, but I will anyways, right? We all remember the saga of the offseason of, he's dealing with just a small Achilles tendonitis. He'll be fine by the beginning of the beginning of the season. Don't worry. Oh, wait, now we're getting close to the beginning of the season. He's not ready. Oh, wait, he missed I have it here. 8 games. 8 games, ladies and gentlemen. He sat out the first 9 weeks because week 9 was a bye, and then like the next thing you know, Christian McCaffrey, like he was all right, weeks 10 and 11, 16 fantasy points, 14 fantasy points, and then he had 6 points against Green Bay, and you're like, what is going on? And then week 13 comes, and it's the Snow Bowl against the Bills, and then he was literally on a breakaway run for a touchdown that was going to make you say, Christian McCaffrey's back. He's going to win me this league, whatever league I'm in, and then 0-8 PCL injury. So basically that long story that I'm giving you is, the risk is the guy cannot stay healthy consecutively. The years he does, he's the running back 1, and he's far and away the running back 1, and I'll get into that as the reward. But just to give you some more risks, he's 29 years old, turning 30, and we talk about so much about how running backs hit that 30-year-old age cliff, and like they die off. You know what I mean? Like some of these players that are just dominant athletes, like Christian McCaffrey, like when they hit that 30-year-old, it's different for everyone because everyone's body's different. Like it just sometimes goes in a flash, and it's like, what the heck happened? He's an absolute nobody now. The other thing that I want to point out that's not even Christian McCaffrey related is the 49ers defense. The 49ers defense is not going to be as good as it was last year. Yes, they do have the easiest strength of schedule. However, with a weak defense and an easy strength of schedule, I can see for the 49ers having to play to win those games a lot, as opposed to already being up like big points, and then you can salt the game away with someone like Christian McCaffrey. I know we talk about Christian McCaffrey being a PPR monster and everything. I totally understand that. However, even if they're down and he's only getting PPR touches, that's still touches he's losing in the running game. So it's not the full gambit of what Christian McCaffrey is, and what he is the rushing married with the passing, and both those together. If you only get one half of it, it's still not as good. But the rewards of it is, listen, if he's healthy, like I just said, if he's healthy, he's the running back 1. There's nothing else that I need to say. You know what I mean? Like he's the only running back where he's being drafted right now that has the potential to be the running back 1. He's being drafted right now at the 203. I'll tell you everyone else who's being drafted around him in that ADP range. Devon Achane, I think Devon Achane's great, but I don't think he's going to be the running back 1. Bucky Irving, no. Josh Jacobs, no. Jonathan Taylor, no. Like, he's the only guy in that range that, like, if the things go right and he stays healthy, you just got to steal in the beginning of the second round a guy who's going to be the number 1 running back in all of fantasy football. But that's also to say that he beats the case of being a 30-year-old running back. He beats the case of being an injury-prone guy. But if he beats those 2 major red flags, you got something special.
I know it's just like such a difficult situation for me, because I know I've brought it up a couple times on the show. Throughout the past couple months, is like. Because this is literally the risk reward show, and I think for me the risk is too much. I'm like saying it out loud, and it's like it sounds so ridiculous, but I feel like the risk for me is a little too high compared to the reward because of where he has to be drafted, whether it's early first, late first, early second, late second. Those are crucial picks in your draft. And Colin Leclerc last year takes McCaffrey at what? 3 or at 1?
No, it was 1.
Yeah, and it's like you take him at your first overall pick, and now all of a sudden he's gone, and your team is down a first round pick while everybody else is sitting with their guys that they got in the first. So it's like, for me, like if he got to, like, I think even in the third round, I would still be nervous just because of the quality of players that you're getting at that point in the draft, and these are the foundation of the rest of your roster, and it's how you're going to make decisions for the rest of the draft. And it's like, if he's gone for 8+ weeks, like, you are screwed. Yeah, and for me,
absolutely.
For me, the risks are just too high. I'd rather somebody else. I'd rather somebody else take McCaffrey, take the risk, go on and win a championship, than me get burned. I think that's my final standing.
I respect that. I think the other way, other than just rolling the dice and hoping it all works out, the other way too is just like, you have to nail the other 3 picks of those first 4 rounds. You know what I mean? Like, you have to. I mean, I'm assuming McCaffrey is your high variance, pick. Like you have to essentially go safe the other 3 picks of the first 4 round in order to make sure that you have guaranteed fantasy value in those spots, so that if McCaffrey does bust on you, it's like all isn't lost, and you can some way find a way to recoup that. Whether it is, maybe a great strategy this year is handcuffing McCaffrey with Isaac Guerrero. You know what I mean? Like you cannot leave that draft. If you draft Christian McCaffrey, you cannot leave that draft without taking Isaac Guerrero, just so you have that added safety blanket of, have the San Francisco running back room. We talked about how valuable that running back room is, so that could be a potential option as well. So we're gonna roll into the wide receiver position. You got an interesting name on here. I just I don't know, man.
I'm gonna go Jackson Smith and Jigba. Starting off with the risk, Seattle turned its roster on its head completely. DK Metcalf is gone. Tyler Lockett is gone. They bring in Sam Darnold. They were one of the teams who was willing to take the risk on the amount of money that they were going to have to give him, coming off of that career year, which raises the question, was Darnold a product of the system he was in with Kevin O'Connell? Is this something that can translate to Seattle? He doesn't have a Justin Jefferson anymore. He doesn't have a Jordan Addison. Like JSN is going to be his guy. And because Seattle just got rid of every other pass catcher they had, like every eye on opposing defenses is going to be on JSN. Like we haven't seen him in a situation where he is the true one. He's always been on a team with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Like, so there's questions around, can he be a one? It's similar scenario to Garrett Wilson the past couple of years, where he officially, got to a spot where he was the one, and there was the question marks around that, and if he could sustain it for a full season. So I think those are the big things for me. And when it comes to, the reward for JSN, he could just get straight hyper targeted and just be a PPR machine.
Can I just say I am so nervous that that can be a potential option.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously we all know about it. I had him in Dynasty last year, and he had literally the true breakout. I'm looking at it right now. He had 100 receptions on 137 targets, 1,100 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And that was when he was the number 2 option. You get rid of DK Metcalf, and it's could he literally just become a target hog? And it's just I panic sold him. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not gonna trip. You know what I mean? But
I don't blame you.
Did I just panic sell, and then he's even more valuable than he finally steps into that almost elite, untouchable wide receiver 1 role. That's what scares me.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
but
it
just hit me.
That's the game we play here. That's the beauty of fantasy football. You could get burned no tomorrow in the blink of an eye.
I'm so nervous now.
I mean, he could just become hyper targeted. Maybe Darnold continues on his career revival and performs better than Geno ever did in Seattle. And maybe Kenneth Walker gets back to his healthy self. Being the lead back in a dangerous rushing attack and opening up a bunch of opportunities for JSN. I think these are all possible scenarios. I think when it comes to my final verdict, at least at this moment in time, I think Sam Darnold was a product of the Kevin O'Connell system, the surrounding weapons of Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson and Aaron Jones. Similar to my argument for JJ McCarthy, it could not be a better scenario to be if anybody's going to be a quarterback in Minnesota, it really can't get any better than that. It gives me Sean McVay vibes, or the LA, with the Rams. I feel like you could put a lot of guys in those situations that maybe were wrote off at some point and they could thrive. I guess one positive here is Geno Smith was able to revive his career in Seattle and earn another contract with Vegas. Maybe this is somewhere where Darnold can still thrive. I think there's a lot of questions on the offense though. The offensive line is a problem. The lack of other pass catchers, it's similar to the Jets, where it's JSN and the rest are nobodies.
Right.
They have a rookie tight end coming in with Elijah Arroyo.
Washed up Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp. What does he have left? Maybe he can provide some value for JSN if he still has a little bit of juice, but I don't know if he's still there. I don't think the Rams would have been willing to part ways if that was the case. So it just the complete 180 that the roster took and that the front office just completely changed directions for the Seattle team, where I kind of thought they were in a solid place, with a new head coach. I don't know. They're flirting in the 8 to 10 win range the past couple seasons. It felt like, if they could bolster up that defense, they add to their secondary. Like I felt like they were in like a semi decent spot to be, a piece or two away to maybe, start having some playoff aspirations, but then they kind of just blew it up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And have really just started at square one.
Yeah, I'm looking at his ADP right now, and he's going right now at the 302.
And that's another, piece I missed, for the risk is how high he is being drafted.
Exactly.
It's similar to the Christian McCaffrey scenario.
Like I'm looking at the guys after him right now, and it's right now currently after him is Tyreek Hill. I think with the news of Jonnu, I think I want Tyreek Hill now over JSN.
And it's like the upside of that Miami offense that we saw a couple years ago.
T. Higgins, listen, I know he's a wide receiver too, but
it's a better offense.
Like it's such a better offense, and
Burrow's going to throw the ball a
times. Million times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Next one is Garrett Wilson. I think that one is like the first like true test of like.
I think JSN and Garrett Wilson are on the same plane in my opinion.
I agree, but I think it's like, okay, are you a Justin Fields fan or are you a Sam Darnold fan?
Yep.
And that's kind of
that's a hell of a question,
isn't it? Really. But I think that like it's just whatever your prerogative is in that situation. If you believe in the college connection between Fields and Wilson, then you probably lean Wilson. But if you feel strongly in the breakout that Jackson Smith and Jigba had, and he can ascend even more, then you're probably on the JSN side.
I think the scary part for JSN is last year when I thought that the roster was in a much better spot than it is. Like there were some weeks where he was missing, like on the back of a lot of milk crates. Like week 1, 2.9 points, wide receiver 76. He's a wide receiver 59, 40, 40, 60, 42, 67, 82. Like that's bad. Like really, really bad. And that's when, the roster was better than what it is now, at least, in my head.
Right. But I think also in those situations, Geno was able to target other, like he was able to target DK, you know what I mean? And other things like that. So that's why JSN sat back on the wayside, in playing devil's advocate in the positive way for JSN. There's really nobody else. You know what I mean? Like he could just be like, I want to see Garrett Wilson's game log of like before Devontae Adams. Like he could be the dude who gets each week 11, 6, 9, 8, 22. Like obviously that's a crazy week, but like those crazy amounts of targets that just keeps him, like that sheer number of volume just keeps him afloat, you know what I mean? So he doesn't drop as low as like wide receiver 72, you know what I mean? Maybe it's wide receiver, I'm making up a number here, 32,
right.
You know?
I think him being hyper targeted is a very realistic scenario, and I think if Seattle's smart, it's what they should do, because he obviously is by far and away their best pass catcher. I think the question then is the quality of these hyper targets that he's getting. Like, is Sam Darnold just chucking it in his area? And it's like, I hope JSN comes down with it. Like, is it stuff like that? Like, there's just a lot of questions here in it.
How many targets do you think we see JSN? So, just for context, in both situations, last year he had 137 targets.
He has to have at least that this year.
Oh,
at least.
I think he'll easily have that. But
he should have 160.
And so Jamar Chase last year was the leader with 173 targets, and then we were just talking about Garrett Wilson last year. He had 153. So where do you see JSN falling target wise?
He's got to be anywhere from 150 to 165. Yeah, I think for him to be fantasy relevant, if the quality of targets comes down from what he was getting last year, with the lack of a supporting cast, and like it's all going to him. All the eyes of the opposing defense are going to be on him every single week. He is the game plan for those opposing defenses.
Right.
So you really need to see, it's got to be at least 150 to 160, 165, just to give him a chance. Just the more opportunities, the better. Yeah,
I'm thinking 160 targets is like, or high 150s is what it needs to be. Yeah, I'm with you on that camp. Is that it? Yeah. Do you have anything else to add for JSN?
That's all I got, man. Yeah. There's so many questions here.
It is.
If I had to gun to my head right now, I don't know if I'm taking him in the third round.
No, it's definitely a tough spot. I think you need to wait and see how training camp goes and see kind of how the target distribution's going with Darnold and all the other options, and maybe even seeing him in a couple of preseason games with Darnold to give you that confidence of like, okay, I'm confident in taking it because of what I've seen.
Right.
Going into another receiver that
is a good name to talk about.
It is, and it is and it isn't, because the risk side of it is, I don't think it's his personal fault. You know what I mean? Like, I think so. The person we're talking about is Chris Olave, wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. I think we don't talk about him as much as being such a, like, concussions being a career killer for him, like Tua does. I think
every week
it is, and I think because of just Tua being a quarterback, and quarterbacks are just like the most high profile position, we just forget about Chris Olave. But he's like in the similar camp of Tua, where really the risk that I have for you is that concussions can kill his career. You know what I mean? Like, if he gets another concussion, like, it could be it.
If he gets one
goodbye,
early,
we'll see
like in
later.
the first 5 weeks, like, it's a major concern.
Right. So like, those are obviously the huge risk with him. But the other one I'll throw in too is that he does have a rookie quarterback throwing him the ball. We're all assuming Tyler Shuck is going to be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. You know what I mean? But like, and that's another thing too, is like, first of all, Derek Carr was notorious for throwing hospital balls to him. So hopefully, if there's one thing Shuck learns not to do what Derek Carr did, is throw Chris Olave hospital balls. But here's the thing of why you need to consider Chris Olave for your fantasy team. Outside of Alvin Kamara, he's the true number one option in this passing game. There is no one else. Carr had his thing with Shaheed, I think because he loved to chuck the ball deep, and Shaheed just runs go routes the whole time. I don't think Shuck's that kind of thrower, and I think he's going to have to put the ball in spots for his receiver to catch the ball, which works for Olave. We were just talking about JSN being a target hog. Olave could also be a target hog too. Obviously 2 years ago when he was healthy, he played 16 games. He had 138 targets. You know what I mean? So it's in that same realm of Jackson Smith in Jigba. And I had it and I lost it. I wanted to see. Give me 1 second. Now I'm drawing a blank. I wanted to tell you how many passing yard or receiving yards that Olave had that year
in 23.
Yeah, in 23.
1123.
Yeah, so 1123. So it's all identical stuff to Jackson Smith and Jigba. You know what I mean? So. And his potential for targets can go up because, obviously it's just Shaheed. I think Marquez Valdez-Scantling was someone who got a big amount of targets in the absence of, Chris Olave. With him gone now, like, I just totally see him getting, a crazy amount of targets. And the last piece that I'll say in the reward side is that New Orleans is going to be down in so many games. I think they're the odds-on favorite of being like the worst team in the NFL this year.
Oh yeah, they're going to take their first quarterback in the first round since like the 70s.
Yeah, so I think they're going to be down in the majority of games that they play, which means they're going to have to throw in those games to be competitive, which equals more targets for Chris Olave, and that just means more good stuff for fantasy football. So, synopsis on Chris Olave: if he can stay healthy and he doesn't get another concussion, he can be a target monster. And for someone that you get in the 5th round right now, he's going at the back of the 5th round.
Like, that's a more comfortable spot for me with those outside scenarios
of taking that chance. You're saying,
right?
So where is
because at that point he could be your wide receiver. Actually, 3.
I lied. I think that was in a different format. In like our current format of the Bonnet League, he's going at the 606.
Oh, yeah.
So
at that point he could be a wide receiver 3.
Correct. Obviously there's some names ahead of him that I would still have. Like, I'd probably still have Teterow, McMillan,
yeah,
Travis Hunter, or Chris Olave.
Chris Olave.
Yeah. Travis Hunter or Jalen Waddle. Yeah. Addison's going behind him. I think I'd take Olave over Addison.
Yep.
Godwin over Chris Olave. I think I'm taking Olave.
I think I'll take Olave because you're guaranteed at least those first 4 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's potential there. Like, I think if you nail your running back, two great running backs, two good receivers, and then either a quarterback or a tight end. You're telling me you're taking Chris Olave in the 6th round as your wide receiver 3
That
with
I'm in
that
on.
potential?
That I'm in on.
I'm in. I'll be in there 10 times out of 10. I just pray to God that this man does not get another concussion this year.
Yeah.
I just really don't. I don't want to see it.
Like, the concussions are definitely a big concern for me, but really it's the fact that they're throwing out Tyler Shuck as their starting quarterback for me. It's just like, out of all the options you had, this is what you. It's like, you chose McLovin. Like, I mean, what are we doing here? There are so many names you could have picked.
He could have. Oh my God. Anyways, we're gonna round it out with our last position, the tight end position. Are you in on this, man, Wu?
No.
We're out.
But it's a like. This episode I think it was made for this guy. It's Kyle Pitts.
Outside of Christian McCaffrey, I think this episode was made for him.
Exactly. So the risk here, my first bullet point is look at his career stats minus his rookie year. So sure, I'd happily run through these with you guys.
Oh God.
So his rookie year, he played 17 games, 110 targets, 68 receptions. He has 1,000 yards. He only scored 1 touchdown. He's a tight end 7. You go, okay. This is the athletic freak from Florida that we just watched, and we're very excited to see on an NFL field. Then in 2022, he only plays 10 games. He deals with some injuries. That's all right. He only sees 59 targets, 28 catches, and doesn't even have 400 yards. Scores a couple times, whatever. Missed a bunch of games. Then in 2023 and 2024, he plays a full season again. So you're like, oh, he's got to be back. If he had 1,000 yards his rookie year, oh, man, this guy must have smashed. 90 targets, 53 receptions, 667 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then in 2024, again, plays 17 games. Even less targets. He had 74 and 47 receptions, 602 yards, 4 touchdowns. So, yeah, in 2023 and in 2024, he played a full season. He was a tight end 13 and 15, so he did not even finish inside the top 12 tight ends. So that's my first point. And like I said, he hasn't seen 100 targets in a season since his rookie year. Like, though, if that doesn't scream, please don't draft me, I'm not sure what does. But then you think, oh man, what about that college tape?
Here we go again.
His athletic profile speaks for itself. He is 6'6", 250. He ran a 4.44 40 at that size. I mean, he's like made from a video game. He is a created player that you put on a roster, make him a 99, and you just dominate the league with.
Listen, sometimes I feel bad, and then I go back and I look at Kyle Pitts' Florida highlight, and then it's like, oh, it's so good.
It's like, how did we get from that to where we are now? But if he can get consistent targets like he did in his rookie year, it got him to 1,000 yards and a tight end 7 finish. That was when he was 20. Mm-hmm. So if you would think by now he's matured as an NFL player and understands the league a little bit better.
It's crazy to think we're talking about matured and the dude's not even 25 yet. He's still 24
years old. He's a year older
than
I am, and I'm far from mature. I'll tell you that. But you would think that from what he was able to do his rookie year, God forbid he just gets a season of consistent targets, he should be able to build on that and start seeing these top 5 tight end finishes that we're thinking that he can do. A couple green flags here. He has an opportunity to build a rapport with a young quarterback in Penix and become a safety valve for him, while he gets his feet wet. Penix has only played 3 games in the NFL. One of them was week 18 that didn't matter. Mm-hmm. So I'm really only going to say he's played 2 serious NFL games. So that's an opportunity for Pitts. And he plays alongside Drake London, who is going to be the primary focus for all these defenses on a week-to-week basis. So, due to his lack of production over the last couple of years, maybe kind of flies under the radar. Defenses aren't thinking about him much. But that's what I have here for Kyle Pitts. I don't know, where you sit on him going into this year.
Dude.
But the Florida tape.
But the Florida tape. I don't know. I was looking at my rankings because I just wanted to make sure, like, am I in on Kyle Pitts? But I have him as the tight end 14 right now, so yeah. I'm not in.
I'm not in. What do you have, 63 targets on the season?
I have him down for 81 targets.
That might be too much.
That still might be too much. But I'm looking at his ADP, and I'm just hoping that the people are not just like still in on Kyle Pitts because of all the hype stuff. I mean, right now he is going at the 12.05. So,
Wow.
I think people are kind of really understanding. Like, I think people have been burned once, twice, maybe 3 times by Kyle Pitts, and, they're finally giving up on him. So, but then I think, is that when
12th round, it could be a steal.
is that when you want to take
him?
him?
I don't know.
We can't. We got to
Jim.
stay strong.
I don't know.
We can't. We got to stay strong.
I can't do it. I can't.
We're out on Kyle Pitts, but leave the light on.
Yeah, we'll see.
Last player in our high risk, high reward series that I'm going to give you
This is a good one.
Evan Ingram. And here are the risks. Listen, it's two major big ones. I think if you have been keeping tabs on the players that I've picked, there's two key themes that I'm harping on. Evan Ingram is coming off of a hamstring injury that caused him to miss 2 months of the season. And that was him coming off of a season where he was the tight end too, having monster performance in a Jacksonville offense that essentially he was the focal point of that team. And you think, okay, going into 2024, we're just going to see more of the same of that. He gets derailed by injury. Then he goes out and signs with the Denver Broncos. He's a 30-year-old tight end going into the latter half of his career, and he's changing teams. That never bodes well for players that are turning 30 years old and going to a new team. I can give you a crazy list of players. I don't need to, but you know that it's just bad news. However, the reward of this side is kind of interesting because potentially, outside of Cortland Sutton, he could potentially be the number 2 option in this Denver Denver
highly
offense.
Possible.
You know what I mean? And we always talk about being connected to coaches and offensive minds that you trust. There's no other name that outside of McVay that you probably trust more than Sean Payton. Sean Payton was the quintessential offensive guy for so many years before McVay, before Shanahan. You know what I mean? So if there's a name you're going to trust, you trust Sean Payton. And then lastly, Bo Nix is only going into a sophomore year. Obviously you and I, we have high hopes for him, Will, but he's still developing as an NFL quarterback, and obviously there are going to be some growing pains in the process. And if Evan Ingram can be that reliable safety valve for him, and dump the ball off, or just get a 5-yard or a 3-yard gain instead of getting a 5-yard loss, those are all positive things for Evan Ingram. So
I love the possible opportunities that Evan Ingram could face in this offense. Yet because of their lack of a number 2, so to say. Marvin Mims, had a pretty strong back half of last year compared to how little he was used, like embarrassingly little that he was used prior to that.
Right.
So there was he was kind of catching some steam there towards the end. But I don't see him as someone who has enough trust to become that number 2 option just yet. Maybe by the end of this year we'll have a better idea of what that looks like. But I think week 1, it's definitely Cortland Sutton, and then it's Evan Ingram. I don't think Marvin Mims is even sniffing that number 2 option yet.
No, not even close.
And there's plenty of targets there to be had for Evan Ingram. When he was in Jacksonville, he was able to stretch the field a little bit. He could break off some bigger plays. Now that he's 30, coming off the injury, I don't know if that part of his game will still be there. If it is, it's definitely not going to be to the level it was. But just being we've talked about this so many times with safety valves for young quarterbacks. That's like a perfect spot for a tight end. I think Evan Ingram would be a great guy to do that.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think about, and I didn't mention this earlier though, is that when you think back to when Sean Payton's offenses have been at its peak and where it was high scoring and high flying, he had a guy named Jimmy Graham on that team, you know what I mean, who was a dominant force. And I'm not saying that Evan Ingram is Jimmy Graham. However, you just think of the utilization that Jimmy Graham got in that time. Who knows, maybe he can get some of that. And it's
right.
I'm looking at this, this team. Outside of, Sutton, Mims, who we talked about, Pat Bryant, who's a rookie, is a complete unknown. Devon Vele didn't really show much in his rookie year. Troy Franklin, we saw nothing of. It's like you keep going down the list, and it's like there really is nobody else to, compete for these targets.
He's definitely a late name that I'm heavily considering in a lot of drafts.
I just had it up. Hold on, I'll tell you. So Evan Ingram is going at,
say round 11.
You're going to guess round 11?
Mm-hmm.
How about round 8?
Wow.
He's going at the 809 right now. So names going after him. Would you rather have Evan Ingram or David Njoku?
Evan Ingram.
Evan Ingram or Tyler Warren?
Evan Ingram.
Evan Ingram or Dalton Kincaid?
Evan Ingram.
Would you rather have Evan Ingram or Mark Andrews?
Evan Ingram.
He's going ahead of him.
Wow.
Evan Ingram or Travis Kelce?
Oh, Evan Ingram. The upside's
Whoa.
there. Upside's there.
So Andrews and Kelce are going ahead of. Would you rather have Evan Ingram or Jonnu Smith?
Evan Ingram.
Wow, he's flying up the boards right now. So right now, I mean, Evan Ingram or Sam Laporta?
Sam Laporta.
So you have him right now as your tight end 6.
Somebody's got to do it.
I respect it.
Listen, let me
let me look at my
rankings are
projections.
completely fluid until the season starts,
and we can't. Lock
and
him
even
in.
then,
let's see. What do I have him in my personal projections? I have Evan Ingram as. Oh, I gotta fix this big time. I'm not even gonna say it because
you're sleeping.
I'm big time sleeping,
And you owe him an apology.
I know I owe him an apology, and this needs to change ASAP, and they will be changed by the time of this next episode. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Your high risk, high reward players of 2025. If you like what you heard, please make sure you are following us, giving us a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you are watching this episode, we appreciate you watching this episode. Give us a like and a subscription over on YouTube. We're a weekly podcast. We're going to keep giving it to you each week, and we got some good stuff coming down the pipe. You know, if you think about it, this is the first episode of July that we're going to be posting.
Wow.
You know, 2 more episodes, and then training camp starts. You know what I mean? So like it's coming hot and fast, and you know we're here for you. You know, please make sure you're tuning in each and every week, getting yourself ready for your drafts. Again, make sure you're following us Twitter at 4th and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at 4th and Fantasy, YouTube at 4th and Fantasy. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we love you, and we will see you on the other side.
See ya.